Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining our webinar, Nurturing Records Management in Your CU. My name is Andy Zaharis. I am an account executive here at CDI, and I'm happy you're joining me today for our webinar. Today, we're talking about nurturing records management for your credit union. So some of the things that we're going to talk about today is, what is the definition of records management? What are retention recommendations? What are the records management components within the Laserfiche system? What records management reports are available? We'll do a quick demonstration to show you records management in action in a demonstration system. And then we'll talk about setup and automation functions that are available from CDI. So let's begin. We have a couple of housekeeping items to go over, as always. First, all of the participants are now muted. If there are any questions that come up in this webinar, please post them in the questions box, and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. Slides and screenshots, as always, will be available upon request, and the webinar session will be recorded and soon will be available on our media channels and on our website. Okay, let's begin with a definition of what records management is. Records management is the efficient and systematic control of the creation, receipt, maintenance, and use and disposition of records, regardless of whether they are paper or electronic format, to ensure their accessibility and to protect evidence. Records can be physical or digital and are required to be stored and retained over a period to support a business activity. For many credit unions, records management is implemented with just a folder structure, such as what I have on the screen here today. However, with Laserfiche Records Management, you can ensure that you are tracking the entire life cycle of a record, from the creation all the way through to the disposition or destruction of a document. All of this is backed up with the system audit logs and full tracking. When organizations want to evolve their records process, Laserfiche Records Management provides the tools to implement the full lifecycle tracking, and can even be set up to be compliant with records management standards such as DoD 5015.2. Tracking the full lifecycle of a record is becoming more important as more regulations are passed requiring credit unions to comply. So, what are the NCUA guidelines for records management? Now remember, the NCUA does not set your records management policies. They do not tell you which records to keep as permanent or to destroy. They simply provide some guidelines. This guideline is provided in Part 749 of the Code of Federal Regulations. So, other countries will have similar guidelines to follow. As we look at this list, you can see there are a lot of records here that are to be permanently retained. Charters, bylaws, amendments, certificates or licenses. Some of the key operational records, such as meetings of membership, board of directors, credit committee, or supervisory committee. Your financial reports, such as your call report, the 5300 or the 5310, or an equivalent report. Your credit union profile report, your NCUA form 4501, or its equivalent, submitted to the NCUA at the end of each quarter. Copies of the supervisory committee annual reports, applications for membership, journal and cash records, general ledger records, copies of statements of members and individual share and loan ledgers, bank reconciliations, and of course, one of the most important records is the listing of records that are being destroyed. So let's look at which records can actually be destroyed. Any record not described above is appropriate for destruction, unless it must be retained to comply with requirements of consumer protection regulations. Now remember, your guidelines are regulated by your local state or local country. So you'll always want to follow those. Also, your board approves which documents can be destroyed and what their retention policy is. So your retention policy will differ state to state. But here are some recommendations from the NCUA. Applications of paid off loans, paid notes, disclosure forms, cash received vouchers such as receipts, general journal vouchers, canceled checks, bank statements, any outdated manuals or canceled instructions, correspondence, and other things can all be destroyed. Now, many of these records are some of the largest types of records that we have within our system. Receipts create a huge volume and build up quickly, taking storage, requiring security, and if they're kept beyond our required timeframes, they can lead to exposure legally within the credit union. So what controls records retention? It is a Laserfiche record property, which is a special type of metadata assigned to a record. Laserfiche Records Management module enables records managers to set the record's properties. They will allow you to set the filing date of a record, what cutoff instructions pertain to this record, how long to keep the record after cutoff, and then if the record is to be destroyed or accessioned, move it to another storage system. You can also track the disposition authority or the regulations governing the disposition of that document. In some organizations, that may be called a DAM number, or for many credit unions, that may simply refer to the policy for your retention. Records can be marked as permanent or vital records, which vital records are records that need to be reviewed on a regular schedule. Laserfiche Records Management module is available for most systems, including Avante and Rio, and some subscription-based platforms. In this screenshot, you can see that this record, which is a receipt, was created on April 1st, which is the filing date. Our cutoff instructions are time-based, monthly. So it is a cutoff instruction retained for 7 years, time, monthly. The retention schedule is to retain for 7 years and then destroy the document. Once a record is cut off and a retention period is initiated, the document is no longer editable. We can also choose to keep the metadata if we would like to keep the metadata. So what is a cutoff? To cut off a record is to take a record action on a document or a group of documents. This action does several things at the same time. First, a special security status is in place. Records cannot be modified. Then, the images, pages, and metadata of the template fields are locked. Once the document has been cut off, it cannot be modified in any way. Next, the document will begin its retention period, defined by the record properties. This is the time that the record must be retained. There are two main cutoff types. For this example, you may cut off receipts at the end of each month or at the end of each year. The records will then be held in retention until they have reached the end of their retention period. This is a time-based cutoff. These are cut off on a specific schedule. So 7 years from the cutoff, a receipt can be destroyed or dispositioned. The other type is an event. An event is some external activity that will trigger a record to be cut off and moved to a retention period. For example, you may want to store a paid consumer loan for 2 years after the paid date. So the triggering event is when the loan is paid off. Then, after 2 years, the loan is eligible for destruction. Reports provide records managers with the information on which records are ready for cutoff. So what is the retention schedule? Down here at the bottom is the retention schedule. The retention schedule defines the period of time a record must be stored and is no longer active. Once we've reached the end of the retention schedule, the record is then eligible for disposition or destruction, or accession, which is moving it to another record authority. This record that we're showing on the screen is eligible for destruction. You can see it has a large destroy button here. It tells us that it was eligible for cutoff on 4/2/2025, and it was eligible on 4/1/2018, and it was cut off on 4/2/2025. So they do not have to be cut off on exactly the date, but that is the date that will be tracked. Also, at the bottom of the screen, you can see the option to keep metadata. This will allow you to destroy the actual documents, but keep an empty record with the associated metadata. This may be helpful if there are any questions about the custody of a specific document. Records managers run reports to find which records are ready to be destroyed or accessioned, and can do those activities on multiple records at the same time. Here's a sample of a report showing all records that are eligible for cutoff. And we can see the cutoff instructions for these records. I am using the web client here, but these reports are available in either the desktop client or the web client. In this report, we see what I am searching for, all records eligible for cutoff. I can look at each record individually or as a group, and I can multi-select groups of documents to apply an action to. I can also filter this report down using additional qualifiers. All records reports eligible for destruction in the last 7 days, for example. From this pull-down pane, you can see those records that are eligible for cutoff, eligible for disposition, vital records to review, and all of your records. Security. Security is important. You will want to know who can actually perform these actions. Laserfiche has a comprehensive security model. For any user to be able to participate in any records management activities, they must be assigned the records management privilege. Records management requires Laserfiche Advanced Audit Trail. All record management activities are tracked and logged within the audit system. Managers can access special audit reports based upon the specific activities they desire to track. All records that enter retention receive special security settings, including making the records read-only. Here's an example of an audit report showing all records management activities within my demo system. Users with access to the audit reporting system can generate these audit reports on all record activities, and they can build custom reports. These reports can be customized, and if you'd like, can be downloaded as Excel files and then formatted to present in any other format you would like. Now let's take a look at a system with records management. Here is my web client window with a sample system in it. Let's look at the receipts to begin with. I'm going to go to my Credit Union Daily Work receipts folder, and then receipts for 2025. If I look at the records in my March folder, here are my records. And notice some of my records have a file cabinet icon rather than a file folder icon. These are records that have been put into records management with records information. If I look at one of these records, such as this receipt for 3/31/2025, I can look at the records properties. This is a new part of your template. So you see your fields, your preview, your processes, and then your records, and I can edit the properties of that record. If I look at the record properties here, the filing date was 3/28 on this record. It was eligible for cutoff on 4/1. That is because my cutoff instructions are monthly. So at the end of each month, these records are then available for cutoff. If I cut off this record, it will then be retained for 7 years. And then it will be destroyed and we will keep the metadata. To cut off this record, I simply choose cut off and say, okay, that record is now cut off. Once I cut this record off, it tells me the date that it will be eligible for destruction, which is April 1st, 2032. If I come back and look at some of my records from 2018, you'll notice there is a different icon shown on these records. These are records that were destroyed. And we can see in the records property that it was destroyed and it was eligible for destruction in 2017, but it was destroyed in 2023. So this records manager was a little behind the times. If we look at some of these records, such as this receipt, we'll notice that the file is not here. There are no pages within this document, but I can still see all of the fields and the information that was associated with this. So this record has been destroyed, but the metadata has been retained within this record. Let's look at some other records. So if we wanted to look at credit union checks, for example, from 2025, here's the checks for March. And if I look at this one, we can see that it is eligible for cutoff as well. But it has a 2-year retention period. So I'm only retaining my checks for 2 years after their cutoff. These are all time-based cutoffs, and often you will use automation to perform the cutoff on a specific schedule. Some other types of records would use something like an event. So if I came up here to my accounts and looked at my loans and my closed loans, for example, and went to 2025, January, here is a closed loan. This closed loan was one that would be an event. Once the loan is closed or paid, then I can set records management activities, and I can keep that record for the records management time that it's to be kept. Other records need to be marked as permanent. So if I look at my accounts again, and I come down here to statements, and go into a folder here and look at a statement, notice this record has been marked as a permanent record. And in our case, permanent records are retained for 100 years. These different ways of looking at records and tracking records allow you to create a comprehensive system for making sure that your records management system is up to date, the records are tracked appropriately, and that they are that you can audit all records activities. If I come here to the records management tab, here I can run reports. So I can run a search for all eligible for cutoff records. Here is my search. It shows all the folders that are eligible for cutoff. If I want to see the actual records themselves, I can run the search and see the actual records that are available as well. I can also see all of the records that are eligible for destruction. And again, I can include the actual records. And if I would like to destroy a record, I can see this record's property. I can click destroy, or I can multi-select multiple and destroy multiple at the same time. These reports allow a records manager to quickly and easily see what is available to be destroyed, to be cut off, or the status of permanent or vital records. So I can also look at vital records to be reviewed, which I do not have any. All of these actions are controlled through the records management system. Now, I can also do custom searches. For example, I may want to look at all records that have holds on them. These are records that have holds on them. Any record that is in a records management situation can have a hold placed on that record. When a hold is placed on a record, no records management activities can continue, and the record is also frozen. Let's show an example of doing a hold on a record. We're going to go back to those receipts. We're going to choose this record, we're going to choose our more actions up here, choose holds, and add a hold to a record. I can create an existing hold, or I can choose one that's already been out there. I have a legal hold and a date that this record is going to be held for. Legal hold and the date are descriptions used to help you track which holds are on records. Records cannot be destroyed, moved from one disposition to another, or moved from one record activity to another when a hold is in place. Only records managers can set holds for records. Audit trail is another function that we can show. If you have access to the audit trail system, you can come in and run reports. For example, here is a records retention report. Notice here are all the records that are out there, the eligibility date, the hold ID, and all of the information about these records. So this tells me everything that's happened to these records. I can use filters to filter down. For example, this is a date range of the last 30 days. I can choose that date range. I can choose custom or relative, say for the last 30 days or the last 30 or the last 7 days, or all the records that have been changed today. I can also come over here and I can choose to download. I can download into an Excel spreadsheet all of this information and create custom reports for that. Going back to our slides, what are your next steps? So here are the next steps. CDI has experts to help you set up your system. Consider the following benefits that CDI can offer. We have individuals who have more than 20 years of experience setting up these systems to allow you to fully implement these systems. Special developed workflows and workflow activities may be needed to automate your records management in the most efficient way for your team's needs. Remember, good records management requires manually reviewing and disposing your records. Some systems may tell you to automatically delete your documents. That does not follow good records management practices. Custom reports, logs, make sure that you are always in compliance and follow your own policies. Let's look at a few examples. Here is our records management design service. CDI can help you do an initial assessment, make recommendations, manage your projects, help you define your cutoff instructions, record series, make sure your access rights are correct, create your folder structure if you are using transparent records management, assign records management to classification of folders, automate your cutoffs, automate your disposition reports, create documentation, user acceptance testing, and training. Let's look at some of the logs that we can provide. Disposition logs make it easy for records managers to review files that are eligible for destruction. Managing specific criteria, for example, eligible for destruction within the current month or the previous month. The log will automatically send an email with all files eligible so they can be reviewed. Another CDI function add-on would be the destruction log. Records managers can receive an automated email with destruction logs. Destruction logs are initiated by a business process or an on-demand workflow, and it queries the system and generates a log for what was deleted. When and by who? Here's an example of a destruction log. All of these features and functions are available as part of a comprehensive records management solution when you partner with CDI to complete your records management processes. Now, I've gone through a lot of information very, very fast. Hopefully, you found this information instructive. Do we have any questions? I don't see any questions in our chat window. So, as always, let's give you some helpful resources. If you'd like to know more, visit our website, www.cdi.support. We have a YouTube channel at CDI_official. Our webinars, including upcoming webinars, are all found at cdi.support/webinars. Our fish tips and our newsletter are also available. There are some Laserfiche resources as well: the Laserfiche Solutions Exchange, Aspire Training, Getting Started Guides, the Solution Marketplace, and Laserfiche Answers are all great resources. If you'd like to contact us, I am Andy Zaharis, the Director of Credit Union Sales. You can contact us at consulting@cdi.support, sales@cdi.support, support@cdi.support, and my email and contact information are also included. If you would like to have these slides or access to a copy of the recording, please reach out and let us know. Thank you for attending today. I appreciate your attendance and hope that you all have a wonderful day.